The bioluminescent bars of Station Nephros, 7 flickered in rhythmic pulses, casting ethereal shadows across the metallic walls. Admiral Jassy, designation FEL, 9X, third-generation feline augment, sat hunched at the corner booth, her cybernetic whiskers twitching with electromagnetic interference. The neural implants along her skull glowed faintly beneath her sleek black fur, processing tactical data even in her off hours, a curse of military augmentation that never truly allowed rest. She stared at the empty glass before her, its crystalline surface reflecting the fragmented pieces of her identity. 3 years commanding the Seventh Fleet. 3 years watching her crew, human and augment alike, disintegrate in the vacuum of the Andromeda incursion. The weight of 17,000 souls pressed against her consciousness like a collapsed star. "Can I drink here?" Jassy's voice emerged as a low growl, barely audible above the station's ambient hum. Her question wasn't about permission. Admirals didn't need permission, but about something deeper, something existential that clawed at the edges of her augmented mind. Behind the bar stood Danielle, a man whose weathered face told stories of decades spent patching together the broken pieces of humanity's reach into the cosmos. Once a combat medic in the Titan Wars, now a veterinary specialist for augmented species, he'd seen every permutation of suffering that bioengineering could create. His calloused hands moved with practiced efficiency, cleaning glasses that would never truly be clean in a station where recycled air tasted of desperation. "That depends," Danielle replied, not looking up from his work. His voice carried the weight of someone who'd answered too many impossible questions. "Are you asking as an admiral, or as someone who's forgotten what it means to be alive?" Jassy's enhanced pupils contracted sharply. The neural combat protocols in her brainstem flickered to life momentarily: threat assessment, tactical positioning, probability matrices, before she forcibly suppressed them. This was the exhaustion talking, the decades of military conditioning that had transformed a simple house cat's DNA into something that could command warships and calculate kill chains in microseconds. "I watched them die," she said, each word precisely measured. 17,463 individuals. I have their neural signatures stored in my memory banks. Every death, every scream across the comm channels. The medical AI suggests I purge the files, but..." Her voice trailed off, biological emotion warring with digital precision. Danielle finally looked up, his dark eyes meeting her augmented ones. He'd treated hundreds of species, uplifted dolphins with existential crises, augmented wolves who'd forgotten how to hunt, even a genetically modified octopus who'd developed a fear of water. But Admiral Jassy was different. Her depression wasn't a malfunction. It was the price of perfect memory in an imperfect universe. "You're not asking about drinking alcohol," Danielle observed, setting down the glass. "You're asking if you're allowed to feel. If someone with firmware updates and tactical subroutines running in their neural cortex has the right to drown in something as fundamentally biological as grief." Jassy's tail swished involuntarily, a remnant of her base genome expressing itself through layers of military modification. "The Admiralty Board wants me back in command. New fleet, new mission. They've offered to upgrade my emotional regulation systems, install better mimetic filters. They say I'll be more effective." "More effective at what?" Danielle's question hung in the recycled air like a challenge. "At forgetting? At becoming the weapon they designed you to be." He reached beneath the bar and produced a bottle, not the synthetic compounds most stations served, but something older, something from Earth. Pre-expansion vintage, saved for moments that demanded authenticity rather than efficiency. "This," he said, pouring a measure into her glass, "is made from actual grains grown in actual soil under an actual sun. It'll interact poorly with your neural implants. You'll experience sensory distortions. Your combat readiness will drop by approximately 47% for the next 6 hours. The medical AI will flag it as a health risk." Jassy stared at the amber liquid, her enhanced vision analyzing its molecular composition automatically. Ethanol, congeners, trace minerals from Earth soil that hadn't touched this part of the galaxy in 2 centuries. "Why would you give this to me?" she asked. Danielle's expression softened, revealing the father he'd once been before the wars took his family, before he'd retreated to this station at the edge of mapped space. Because you asked if you could drink here. Not anywhere else. Not in your quarters where the surveillance systems log every biological function. Not at an official bar where admirals maintain appearances. Here, in this grimy corner where broken things come to remember they're still alive. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to something almost conspiratorial. You want my professional opinion as someone who spent 30 years treating augmented species? You're not depressed because you're malfunctioning. You're depressed because you're working exactly as designed, and you finally realize that being a perfect weapon means sacrificing the imperfect, beautiful parts of being alive. Jassie's paw, still organic beneath the cybernetic enhancements, trembled slightly as she reached for the glass. The liquid caught the station's bioluminescence, creating tiny constellations in the amber depths. My reply might stun you, Danielle continued. But here it is. Yes, you can drink here. You can sit in this booth and feel every bit of that grief. You can let your emotional regulation systems glitch. You can remember those 17,000 faces and acknowledge that perfect memory is a curse, not a gift. And when you're done, you can decide whether you want to accept those upgrades and become more weapon, or whether you want to remain messy and broken and fundamentally, terrifyingly alive. Admiral Jassy brought the glass to her lips, her enhanced reflexes steady despite the chaos in her mind. The liquid burned, a sensation her pain receptors hadn't experienced in years, carefully modulated away by military necessity. They'll court-martial me for this, she whispered. Probably, Danielle agreed. But you'll be the first admiral in history to choose feeling over function. That's worth something, isn't it? In the dim light of Station Nephros 7, surrounded by the hum of civilization pushing ever outward into the uncaring void, a depressed cat admiral and a broken veterinarian shared a moment of profound understanding. The universe was vast and terrible and indifferent, but in this small corner, authenticity mattered more than efficiency. Jassy drained the glass, her neural implants screaming warnings she'd learned to ignore. Tomorrow, she'd face the Admiralty. Tonight, she was simply alive, and somehow that was enough.